Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Meet the Mentor series. We're going to be talking with Tony today and learning about his career journey. I'm Lydia, and I'll be our host. So, without further ado, Tony, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're working on these days?
Yeah, thanks for having me here, Lydia. So I'm Tony. I'm based out of Dallas, Texas, and I'm currently working for MongoDB as a senior developer advocate. So um, my association with Flatiron School is I went to Flatiron School back in 2020, and I prior to that I worked in the oil and gas industry. So working for a big Houston company called Halliburton, and I did that for about 5 years, and then I got laid off and I wanted to pursue something else and wanted to challenge myself into something different, but also I wanted to build. I think that's one thing that I really aspired to do. And I thought Flatiron School was a great opportunity for that. And I got a chance to essentially showcase my skill sets, go to the program. And I did the one in Denver. Originally, I'm from Denver. And so, yeah, that's where I all started back in 2020.
Nice, that's awesome. So, I think you're currently at, tell me if I say this right, MongoDB.
Yeah, yep, MongoDB.
Okay. So, what are you doing at MongoDB and what excites you about what you're doing there?
Yeah, it's been about 4 months now that I've been at MongoDB, but we're a database company. So every software engineer that works with data knows about SQL and then, of course, NoSQL databases. So MongoDB is the leading NoSQL database. And what I do specifically is I do a lot of the content creation of helping developers how to understand to use our product and better use our product in the most efficient way. And also, a lot of my work is doing development, but also strategically planning like the content that developers would want to watch and also read and get a better understanding of our product. So
So, do you do a lot of like user interviews or product interviews where you kind of watch people use things and talk to them or talk them through what they're thinking?
yeah, absolutely. So we're a very community focused product. And as a company, we're always trying to be feedback driven in terms of how we create better and bigger features. And so a lot of the work that I do does involve a lot of community driven involvements like on Discord and also on Stack Overflow on Reddit. We are involved on there and we're trying to increase that awareness span each and every day.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Um, so, taking a few steps back, can you walk us through your career journey and maybe share some pivotal moments that kind of shaped your path?
Yeah. So I had a pretty interesting path to where it all started. So I was very fortunate to where in during COVID, it was the boom. Like I think
Yeah.
there was a huge hiring spike. So I rode that roller coaster when it all started. And so when I graduated from the boot camp, I actually started interviewing pepping very, very early. I actually started to interview during like week 3 or 4 of the coding boot camp. And one of the things why I did that is I knew I wasn't going to really get that first job through those first couple interviews, but it gave me that exposure to know what it's like to be in an interview. And so just through those moments, I've learned what I need to do better on and just be feedback driven in terms of my next future interviews. And so that landed me my first job in Dallas. So moving from Denver, never been to Dallas, had no thoughts of coming to Dallas, but here I am still 5 years after. And
Must liked it.
yeah, it's pretty nice. The weather's it's pretty gruesome sometimes, but I love the weather here during the winter. It's pretty nice. But I started at a startup. I worked at a startup that was pre-Series A. So it was about like maybe 15 engineers at most. And I got hired as a backend developer doing Node.js. And I did that for about 10 months. And then I got hired. Southwest Airlines actually was my second company. They reached out on LinkedIn. And by the way, I got all my jobs in software through LinkedIn. Like
Ooh,
it's incredible. Yeah,
that's good to know.
yeah. So all my jobs in software has been purely through LinkedIn. But my second job, Southwest reached out. I went through the interview process and I got an offer, and so I moved on to Southwest to work on enterprise level software. And through that, I was a full stack developer. So Node.js, React, AWS, everything that what Flatiron School students use, I pretty much apply that knowledge at that company. And then recently, where I'm at MongoDB, I've wanted to focus on content creation just because I've been an instructor for about 4 years, teaching code outside of my work, just through at Flatiron School, but also through another boot camp. But I also own a company doing mentorship. And so I really found passion in that as well. But I love to create content. And so I really wanted to focus a lot of that on a professional sense of in my career trajectory. And so that's kind of what led me to MongoDB was there was an opportunity on LinkedIn and I found it and interviewed, and that's kind of where I am today.
Like LinkedIn is not the secret sponsor of this interview, but that is really helpful to know, especially for people that are in the job market, trying to find options, find some opportunities out there. It's a good spot.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And of course, I always tell people all the time, if you know people in the industry, that's the best way to get your foot in the door. But there are strategic ways that you can kind of apply for jobs on LinkedIn if you have the right resume, but also the right kind of brand image as a interviewee. Because you one thing you have to do is you have to think of yourself as like a product, and like why would employers want to essentially buy you, or why would they want to hire you instead of X, Y, and Z, right? So you want to present yourself as the best product. Why are you different? And if you can tell that difference and that story, that's all it takes, really.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this is connected, and you probably kind
Sure.
of already covered some of this, but this next question is, what inspired you to pursue a career in tech? And then how did you land your current role, which we know it's LinkedIn related.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I in college, I majored in petroleum engineering, nothing to do with code. I was
Wow.
actually very intimidated by code. Like we had a chance to take one like coding class. It's like VBA, which is like an Excel related code. But I was always intimidated by code. But I will really wish I would have done it sooner. I wanted to transition into it because while I was in the oil and gas industry, we were working on an experimental project that had to do with some involvement of code. And that was where I got my first exposure to saying like, hey, like, let me try to revisit this again and see how I like it. And it wasn't as bad as I thought. So I don't know what happened during my college years why I didn't like it as much, but the second time around, it just kind of started to connect. And I felt like things started to fall in its place where I got laid off. That was my time where I had a chance to like maybe pursue this new opportunity. Of course, it was kind of scary, a lot of unknowns, and a lot of the boot camp students do quit their jobs to like pursue this full time. So it is a huge like transition. But that's what made me want to switch is because one, I found interest in it, but two, I wanted to build things again. At my old job in the oil and gas industry, I didn't have that much exposure, and so doing that now is very, very satisfying. And
Yeah.
yeah, with the way that I found my job currently through LinkedIn, I had a connection, and that's kind of how it all worked out.
I think it's so interesting that you said that in college you thought coding was intimidating, but it was kind of once you had more context for how you could use it,
Yep.
basically, it was like, maybe I can tackle this. I've
Yeah.
heard other people say similar things where I don't know what it is, but somehow the way coding has unintentionally branded itself, maybe
Yeah.
in college, the way we perceive it is that it's kind of intimidating and maybe unrelatable, or we don't know how we'd apply it. But there are actually so many ways you can apply it. And maybe that's the thing, is figuring out, how does this fit into my life before it like
Yeah.
really starts to click.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very, very grateful to be, in the position I am where, I do want to pass this knowledge on and also help the next set of developers that are going to the boot camp. Yes, the market is tougher, but there's still opportunities out there. It's just a matter of like how you get there and like when that's going to happen, right?
Yeah. Well, taking kind of a different angle, my next question is kind of on lessons learned. So, what's one lesson or insight from your career that has stuck with you and continues to guide you?
Yeah, being it's it's embracing failure. You're going to face a lot of that during as a coder or developer, full stack engineer, whichever career path you go. Learn to embrace failure and don't be so discouraged by it. Whether that's through thousands of job applications that you do and you're getting rejected every single one of them, or like you do something that's like pushed up to production and something happens. It's part of the lesson as being a junior developer to like experience those things and like learn from it. But don't be afraid to fail because it's all part of the journey. And if you can understand how to make it better and also reflect on it, I think that's the most important part. Is obviously don't just kind of like set it to the side once you realize it, but immediately try to just reflect on like what have I learned from this failure and what could I do better. I think that's the opportunity that you can take with you that you won't get a lot of chances of. And so for me, I've experienced a lot of that too with my business too. I've seen a lot of my some of the businesses I've done. I've seen a lot of failures and also just in life in general as well.
Yeah, that's such a good point. People talk about resilience a lot, and I
Yeah,
think coding is like a daily practice of resilience
yeah,
where
yeah,
you're just troubleshooting all the time.
yeah.
Um, but I really like your point about reflection and how it's actually taking time to reflect and figure out what went wrong and why did it go wrong and how do I improve or move forward. That's the part that kind of helps you work out forward progress.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Can you give us an example of a time where you faced a challenge or a failure and how you felt like you grew from it?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think the biggest challenge I've had, like just from the last couple years in being a developer, is um, and I think a lot of people can relate to it. It's it's when you kind of experience a new foreign skill set, um, and you can think of that as like good and bad. Like it's going to require change. Change is a very sensitive word because I think change tends to typically intimidate people, either better or the worse. But I think for me, one of the challenges I had is at my previous company, there was a change and shift of like we were so used to doing a regime of like we were building this product. We were so familiar with the product that we built. So I worked on the team that builds and maintains like the aircraft schedules. It was an internal software,
Mm.
and that's all we knew. That was our main product, but our shift went to another product that we had no knowledge of, complete foreign territory. And that kind of intimidated people. But at the same time, yes, it was challenging, but I think that's where you have to have a lot of growth mindset. And that's where I
Mhm.
think I took the chance of like stretching my mindset of, you know, like asking people, asking the stakeholders, learning to kind of build some levels of communication that I haven't done before, but also uh, what other ways as an engineer, I mean, part of the reason why this industry is getting paid so much is because you're kind of solving a lot of the unknowns. You're getting paid for the ambiguity that's there, right? And so like
Mhm.
that's where a lot of the software engineers learn and grow is like you have to have that growth mindset. Is like you have to embrace change. And I think that was the biggest growth challenge I've had is that we were so used to doing something and then now shifting that away to doing something completely different and foreign required a lot of shift in mindset, but also at the same time, what ways can I do to kind of help kind of familiar myself in terms of communication, understanding the docs, whatnot. It requires, yeah, that level of thinking for sure.
Did you have to change programming languages and things like that with the shift, or was it more of just here's a new product or a new process and way of thinking through things?
Yeah, so luckily it wasn't a new language. That would have been a lot more
Okay.
difficult. But imagine you are so used to building, like if the way that I can think about this is imagine that you're so used to building baking bread in a certain way like follow instructions like a b c d like cookie cutter levels kind of style. Most jobs typically do end up in that kind of flow, but like once you get in a new rhythm, I think that's kind of where I say like that paradigm shifted in terms of okay, like it's a whole complete different setup of a project, and it's going to require different vendors that we're using. We're requiring different software and also testing implementations is all different. That's kind of what I'm talking about in terms of change is documentation process, the workflow, new vendors. Yeah, all that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's good advice. Sound advice.
Yeah,
Resilience, and I think a lot of that ties into not to get on a tangent, but it ties into
sure,
AI and
sure.
everybody's kind of relearning what's possible and learning all the new tools and having to stay open to that ambiguity and the future of who knows what.
Yeah, AI is the name of the game right now.
So switching modes into more mentorship focus. Um, I was wondering, so you shared a little bit about how you got connected to Flatiron School. What drew
Yeah.
you to the school and what inspired you to become a mentor?
Yeah. So when it comes to why I went to Flatiron School as a student is the curriculum itself at least in Denver was very, very unique. The instructor at the time was Kyle, and he was a fantastic instructor, and he allowed a lot of industry related concepts during our coursework, which is very important. And so I really, really appreciated that. But also, Flatiron's a pretty big name at that time too. Like a lot of people said good things about it. And so that's what made me pursue enrolling in Flatiron School. And why I became a mentor here is, you know, on a professional sense, I'm a developer, but at the same time, I have a lot of passion for helping the people that are going to be the next set of developers. And I get a lot of gratification in terms of like seeing people grow and learn, but also be guided by industry professionals, especially this industry. If you have insights to learn from professionals, I think that's the biggest asset you can have. And
Yeah.
you'll be so much far ahead in terms of like your learning experience. And plus, that mentor can help guide you and not, well, first off, like help you save time on terms of like what they did and like the mistakes they made and kind of replicate that. And so that way the next, set of mentees don't have to experience that and they can just optimize it as they go, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Have so it sounds like maybe Kyle is someone who influenced your career. Is there anyone, would you want to speak to that more, or is there anyone else that you would want to um, talk about who has influenced your career and maybe knowingly or unknowingly mentored you?
Yeah. Oh man, I would say I'm not gonna lie. I think watching a bunch of YouTube videos on
Yeah,
like I, like
that's real. That's
yeah,
real.
like I'm sure everyone else has thought about it too. Just like the free food and like those videos on like YouTube where people like okay, like that's very motivating. To like see like you can have that kind of like lifestyle. And working remote. That's a very big luxury. Because prior to getting into tech, my life was I was working night shifts. It was like much like a 12-hour, 14-hour day in the middle of nowhere in the oil field. And, to be where I am, where, I'm working out of my room, it's incredible. So like, I think personal motivation was one of the biggest. And of course, like watching a bunch of like, YouTubers that's already been in the space has been a tremendous inspiration for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real. I think YouTube and then books and podcasts, there's so many ways to learn and glean from people in the industry now that obviously we didn't have before. Um, and yeah, I know I learn a ton, especially from podcasts. But anyways, if you could give one piece of advice to someone just starting in tech, what would it be?
Yeah, if I could just give one piece of advice is um, connections, connections, connections. We're kind of out of this COVID era. And so what's different now than what it was at my time is yes, like during my time, like the whole in-person activity is non-existent, but now we're kind of back to norm, I think. But if you can find connections and just network through, especially if you're in a very big tech hub like Austin, New York City, LA, San Francisco, There's so many conferences, but also so many workshops that you can attend. Um, and it doesn't really matter your background, but if you can try to get as much exposure of your name, but also your network, and I think that's the biggest thing advice I can give to anyone is try to get to know as much people in the industry. It's not as big as you think. It's a pretty relatively small industry.
Yeah, that's good. It's the old saying, "It's not what you know, it's who you know." It's probably not entirely true. You got to know something, but but who you know still matters.
100%. Yeah, I mean, even at Southwest at MongoDB, referrals are huge. If you're especially if you're a very high, performing candidate at that company, they have that same expectation of your referrals too, right? And so they already have that kind of expectation, and so it makes a huge difference.
Yeah. Well, so I'm switching gears into kind of future focus. What is it that you want to do next? Like, is there anything you're learning or exploring right now, and why does it excite you?
Yeah, so I have two parts to this question. And so the first part is my professional career path. Where do I want to go in the next 5, 10 years? Um, I really want to work with, you know, mentoring in a more professional sense of like being a leader in the tech industry. So that could be being a manager or director, and just helping shape the next level of developers is kind of my aspirations on that side. But on the second part, I've recently shut down my old business of mentorship, but I am also looking at potentially wanting to do something outside of kind of getting back into the whole entrepreneurship level. So um, I want to just get back into content creation of like making coding a lot easier for people. So that might be
Mm,
making YouTube videos like visually. And I love teaching. Teaching is a huge part of my life, and I really, really enjoy doing that with students. And so those are my two aspirations of today is one to kind of dabble back into entrepreneurship, and two, try to become a leader, a very strong leader that people can really admire, but also be influenced by.
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Are there any specific projects that you're working on right now?
And like personal or just work kind of thing.
Um, probably just like work related, or maybe related to mentorship and and it sounds like you had a thing going that you're kind
Yeah.
of moving
Yeah.
away from and to open up other opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. So at work, our big focus right now and what I'm working on is we're having the shift of placing our digital content of like blogs, but videos and things like that to where developers go. A lot of times, even bootcamp students, where they go is typically maybe not like the actual product website, but maybe in a discovery site like Stack Overflow, Reddit, where communities kind of flow and then kind of discover their product in those avenues. And
Yeah,
so that's one thing that's kind of very fun, but also kind of very challenging and like I'm very interested in is like how do we broadcast that out to those like audiences and kind of help people understand like how to use MongoDB. So that's kind of what I'm working on there. It's kind of the strategic initiatives, but also like just the content ideas of like what people want to see from us. Now, on the outside of that personal, um, I'm currently trying to develop some of my own uh, content creation through my YouTube channel. So I do have a YouTube channel where I kind of stopped it for a little bit right now, but I used to interview other professional engineers that are from Flatiron School mostly. But I want to get back into just developing some content, and I'm building some now of related to kind of the same stack that Flatiron's doing, but in a more visual sense. And I'm doing that just to kind of test it out and
yeah.
trying to just um, yeah see like what people's yeah understanding is and stuff. Yeah,
Well, we would love to see it. I want to see your work.
yeah,
I'm sure
absolutely,
that'll be.
absolutely.
I think visuals are probably. I'm probably partly a visual learner, so it always helps like an idea become more concrete for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely make sure to share that. It's TBD.
Well, I'm going to head into our last batch of questions here. So,
Okay.
one question before the lightning round questions.
Okay.
Um, is there anyone that you know that you think we should interview next? This could be a mentor or a coworker, or it could be
Mm.
someone that you've learned from another capacity. So it could be like a book or a newsletter or a blog
Oh,
or something like that.
oh man, yeah. I'm thinking like before you even complete that question, I know exactly the person that I think you should interview. Is this actually ties back to the question who I'm inspired by. Um, so when I started my first job, the person that hired me, I think pretty much gave me the green flag to hire me as, giving me a shot was Brian Hudson. And he actually worked with me at the company that I built. He was a mentor there as well. But he used to be an English teacher, became pretty much went to the VP level of engineering at the startup. And he actually recently stepped down to become a teacher again to pursue full-time teaching because that's what he loves to do. But
Hmm.
I would highly recommend trying to get an interview time slot with him because he has inspired me so much in terms of like the outlook of software engineering, but also just like what's possible. He's seen from the very ground up of building a company to having it become like a multi-million dollar company, right? And so I think getting that unique aspect is something that a lot of people don't have and would be very valuable to a lot of people.
Yeah, that's really cool. I always think it's fascinating when someone starts in a totally different like thing, like they're in English major or something, and then they end up a VP of a product company.
Yeah, it's like mine is such a
Love.
very cookie cutter, right? It's just like engineer to engineer.
Okay, I'm heading into our lightning round questions, which means that I'm going to ask a series of questions as quickly as I can, but it might be the same pace it always is. We'll see.
Okay. All right.
So, what's something you're listening to or reading right now?
Oh, okay. So
Any genre.
I it's a personal help book. It's called Atomic Habits. It's a book about.
I
Oh,
love
you've
that
read
book.
it. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's so good. I'm like halfway through it. I'm listening to the audiobook for it, but it's really, really good.
yeah, that one's awesome. Okay, what's one product or tool you're into right now?
Oh man, I think right now, this can be any product, like not software.
Mhm. Yeah,
Um, it's my running watch. I think I'm like super geeked out on it for some reason. Like yeah, I don't know. It's like my go-to thing next to my phone.
is it waterproof?
It is waterproof. It's the Garmin, yeah, Forerunner, I think, 165. But I'm just like, I just been obsessed with it. It's really, really nice.
Nice. What date does your next cohort start?
So my cohort starts in May 8th. So it's actually coming up in a couple weeks. So I'm really excited for that.
Awesome. Where can listeners find you?
So listeners can find me in two areas. One on my YouTube channel, which I'll share with you, and also on my LinkedIn. I'm very, very active on LinkedIn. I share a lot of
Awesome.
the content there as well. So you can find me on there.
All right. And then the last question, which is kind of a silly one, but I think it's fun. What made you smile this week?
Oh, it's Friday. It's TGIF. It's the end
Yeah,
of the week.
that's the perfect answer. Well, I really appreciate your time. It's been great getting to know you and learning about your career journey. And I know all of the potential mentees are going to be excited to get to watch this and learn more about you. So we really
Absolutely.
appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah,
Hope you have
thank
a
you so
great
much.
Friday.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Bye.
All right. Take care.